You're walking through Paris on a warm June evening. The streets are packed, there's music, dancing, a massive bonfire in the centre of the square, and above the flames a basket of live cats is slowly being lowered into the fire. The crowd cheers. The king himself lit the kindling. Everyone thinks this is a perfectly normal Tuesday. So what went wrong? For most of human history, cats were doing fine. Ancient Egyptians practically worshipped them. They were useful, they kept grain stores free of rodents, and they asked very little in return. But somewhere between ancient Egypt and medieval Europe, the cat's reputation collapsed completely. And the story of how that happened tells you a lot about how fear works, how religion shapes culture, and how quickly a useful animal can become a symbol of everything people are terrified of. The short answer is that the church decided cats were evil. However, the deeper explanation reveals a much richer and more intricate historical process. To understand this fully, we should first explore what made cats seem suspicious to medieval people. Medieval people weren't irrational. They had reasons for the things they believed. Cats are nocturnal. They move quietly. They don't obey commands the way dogs do. You can't train a cat to be loyal. It comes and goes as it pleases, and no one controls it. For a society built around hierarchy, obedience, and the idea that God placed humans above animals to rule over them, that independence was deeply unsettling. A dog was a servant. A cat was something else entirely. It operated outside the social order, and that made people uncomfortable in a way that was hard to name. Medieval writers started filling in that blank with something darker. The cat's habit of hunting mice got reframed in theological terms. Writers argued that the way a cat toyed with a mouse before killing it was exactly how the devil played with human souls before claiming them. That's a specific, deliberate comparison. Someone sat down and thought that through. Once that idea got into circulation, it stuck. Cats became a symbol of predatory evil dressed in ordinary fur. Their eyes reflected firelight in a way that seemed unnatural. They screamed at night. They appeared and disappeared without warning. If you were already looking for proof that something was wrong with them, you were going to find it everywhere. The real turning point came in the 12th and 13th centuries. This is when heresy panic started spreading across Western Europe. The church was increasingly threatened by reform movements and splinter groups, and it needed ways to discredit them. A writer named Walter Map, working around 1180, claimed that one of these reform groups worshipped a cat as part of their rituals. Whether that was true is basically irrelevant. The accusation landed, and it planted a specific image in the cultural imagination. The heretic, the witch, the devil worshipper, all of them keeping cats, all of them connected through the animal. That association hardened over the next few centuries until it became almost official theology. Once an idea gains institutional support, it becomes self-reinforcing. Other writers picked up the accusation and elaborated on it. Preachers spread it from pulpits. Each retelling added new details and new emotional weight. The connection between cats and spiritual corruption became so familiar that it seemed like ancient truth rather than recent invention. By the late 1400s, Pope Innocent VIII made it formal. He issued a decree declaring the cat an unholy creature and ordered that whenever a witch was burned, her cat should be burned alongside her. That's an extraordinary thing to put in writing. It took a folk superstition and gave it the full authority of the Vatican. After that, killing cats wasn't just something people did out of fear. It was something people did as an act of religious devotion. You were fighting evil. You were protecting your community. The cruelty had a framework that made it feel righteous, and then it became entertainment. That's maybe the part that's hardest to sit with. In France especially, cat burning turned into a public spectacle. Every Midsummer's Day, crowds gathered in Paris to watch dozens of cats burned alive by the sackful. In the town of Saint-Chamond, people would set a single cat on fire and chase it through the streets. In Ypres, Belgium, cats were thrown from a belfry onto the cobblestones below and then set alight. They called it Cats Wednesday. They held it every year. It became a festival. In 1572, an English courtier named Philip Sidney attended one of the Paris burnings and watched a net full of cats lowered into a bonfire from a purpose-built stage. This wasn't a fringe activity. It drew nobles. It drew crowds. It drew the king. Louis XIV lit the bonfire himself in 1648. He was 10 years old. He watched and danced while a basket of cats burned. That detail is hard to understand from the outside, but it tells you something important. This wasn't a secret or a shameful act. It was a celebration. He participated publicly, and nobody thought less of him for it. By that point, the practice had been normalized across multiple generations. Children grew up watching it. It was woven into the seasonal calendar the same way harvest festivals were. The Protestant Reformation didn't fix this. You might expect that breaking from Catholic doctrine would loosen the grip of these particular superstitions, but it didn't. When Queen Elizabeth I was crowned in 1558, the coronation celebration included burning an effigy of the Pope stuffed with live cats. The crowd interpreted the screaming as a conversation between the Pope and the devil. Elizabeth was Protestant. The theology had changed. The cats were still burning. The hatred of cats had become so deeply embedded in European culture that it survived the religious rupture that reshaped everything else. The witch hunting craze peaked between 1580 and 1630, and cats were caught in the middle of it. As many as 60,000 people, mostly women, were executed across Europe during this period. Cats died alongside them by the thousands. The logic was circular and self-reinforcing. Cats were linked to witches. Witches were linked to the devil, and the devil was behind every unexplained misfortune. A bad harvest, a sick child, a cow that stopped producing milk. Somewhere there was a witch, and somewhere near the witch there was a cat. Louis XIV banned the mass cat burnings in Paris in 1648, the same year he lit the last official bonfire. The practice faded slowly after that. Ypres kept throwing cats from the belfry until 1817. Today the town holds a festival every few years where stuffed cats are thrown from the same tower, and a parade winds through the streets, and people celebrate the history of the thing without doing the thing itself.